The shocking truth about the origin of orcs, creatures of darkness. Imagine a primeval world, before great battles, before the rise of kings and heroes. A time when the first beings awakened, touched by the hands of the Valar themselves. In the heart of this ancient era, beneath the shadows of forgotten mountains, a dark secret began to unfold: the birth of the orcs. Legends speak of monstrous creatures, savage and brutal, serving evil without question. But who were the first orcs? Were they born this way? Or were they corrupted? Could they have once been innocent beings, transformed against their will, doomed to live in eternal darkness? Prepare yourself to uncover the shocking truth about the origin of orcs, one of the greatest mysteries of Middle-earth, and one of the most cruel legacies of Morgoth, the original Dark Lord. 1.1. The first shadows before the corruption in ancient times. Long before Sauron, there was another being far more powerful and malevolent: Morgoth, the first Dark Lord. Before becoming Middle-earth's greatest enemy, he was Melkor, one of the most powerful Valar created by Ilúvatar. But, consumed by ambition, he fell into darkness and sought absolute dominion over all things. Morgoth hated Ilúvatar's creation, especially the elves, the firstborn children. He knew he could not create life, for only Ilúvatar possessed that power. But he could corrupt. This led to one of the most terrifying theories in Tolkien's mythology: orcs were not created, but transformed. 2. The dark truth: were orcs once elves? One of the most chilling passages in Tolkien's writings suggests that orcs were originally elves. In the Silmarillion, it is said that when the first elves awakened at the shores of Cuiviénen, some were captured by Morgoth. These prisoners were never seen again. For ages, their fate remained a mystery until the first orcs appeared in the wars against elves and men. The most widely accepted theory among Tolkien scholars is that Morgoth used torture, dark magic, and corruption to transform captured elves into monstrous creatures. Their bodies were twisted, their minds broken, their beauty lost. They were no longer immortal like the elves, but degenerate beings, doomed to hate all they once loved. This origin is one of the most horrific and tragic in Middle-earth. If orcs were indeed corrupted elves, it would mean that they were sentient beings who might have remembered their past existence, but were trapped in a terrible fate. They hated elves, not only because they were commanded to, but because on some level, they knew they had once been like them. They were both victims and villains, serving evil but never given a choice. 3. Morgoth's role. In other writings, he hinted that orcs might have had free will and could even repent, though this was extremely rare. What is known is that orcs were essentially enslaved by the will of Morgoth and later Sauron. They were not inherently evil, they were made to hate. 5. An alternative origin: were orcs beastly creatures? Tolkien considered another possibility. Orcs could have been derived from beasts like wolves or trolls, combined with dark sorcery. In this theory, orcs would not have been corrupted elves, but rather an artificial race, a mixture of lesser creatures, shaped and trained for war. However, this theory is less accepted, as it contradicts passages suggesting that orcs had reasoning, language, and even primitive society traits, indicating a higher origin. 6. The final fate of the orcs: was there hope for them? After the fall of Morgoth and Sauron, what became of the orcs? They were hunted and persecuted by men and elves. Without a master to guide them, they lost purpose and became mere bandits, or recluses in the mountains. Perhaps some managed to free themselves from evil's influence, but no orc in Middle-earth's history ever sought redemption. The sad fate of orcs proves the power of corruption and the difficulty of escaping it. They were tools of evil, but without evil to serve, their existence became empty. As we uncover the truth about the origins of the orcs, we are left with a haunting realization: they were not born evil, they were made that way. Whether they were once elves twisted by Morgoth's cruelty, or an entirely separate creation tainted by dark sorcery, their existence represents one of the greatest tragedies of Middle-earth. But what does this revelation truly mean? Were the orcs beyond redemption? Were they merely tools of evil? Or was there a chance for them to reclaim some fragment of their former selves? To conclude this exploration, we must delve deeper into the moral, philosophical, and symbolic significance of the orcs within Tolkien's world. 1. The true horror of Morgoth's corruption. If the orcs were indeed corrupted elves, then Morgoth's greatest crime was not just war and destruction, but the perversion of life itself. Unlike the Valar, who nurtured and guided creation, Morgoth sought to bend all things to his will. Since he lacked the divine power to create life, he resorted to twisting and breaking existing creatures, turning beauty into monstrosity, light into darkness. This act of corruption carries deep symbolic weight. It represents the loss of free will as the orcs became slaves of their dark master. It signifies the destruction of identity, as these beings were robbed of their former nature and memories. It showcases the power of evil to consume and manipulate, making its victims into instruments of further suffering. Through this, Tolkien paints a terrifying picture of what ultimate evil truly is not just the infliction of suffering, but the theft of an individual's very essence. 2. Were orcs truly evil? The question of free will, one of the most debated questions in Tolkien's mythology, is whether orcs had free will or if they were completely bound to darkness. In various texts, Tolkien hinted at different perspectives in some writings. He suggested that orcs were so deeply corrupted that they were incapable of goodness. They were driven by hatred, cruelty, and fear, and their only purpose was war and destruction. In other letters, Tolkien speculated that orcs might have had some degree of free will, meaning that, theoretically, they could reject evil, but their conditioning and enslavement by Morgoth and Sauron made this almost impossible. This raises a moral dilemma. If orcs were truly sentient beings, did they deserve punishment for their actions? If they were merely tools of their masters, were they victims rather than villains? Tolkien himself struggled with this issue. In one letter, he even contemplated whether some orcs, if freed from Morgoth or Sauron's influence, could redeem themselves. However, in the Legendarium itself, no such case ever occurs. Every orc remains devoted to darkness, whether through fear or instinct. 3. The symbolism of the orcs. What do they represent? Beyond the lore, the orcs serve as a powerful metaphor in Tolkien's work. They represent the corruption of innocence, a reflection of how evil can twist even the purest beings. The loss of self through servitude to darkness, showing what happens when free will is eroded by malevolent forces. The dangers of dehumanization, both in how they were treated as irredeemable and in how they themselves embraced brutality. Tolkien, having lived through the horrors of World War I, may have seen the orcs as an embodiment of soldiers, stripped of their humanity by war, and propaganda beings who followed orders, killed without hesitation, and never questioned their path.